Christopher, thank you very much for joining us today for an interview with some of the leading figures of the domain name dispute resolution community here in Hong Kong and in Asia. We've selected you to kick off our series because you were one of the founding members of the Asian Domain Name Dispute Resolution Centre, and you're one of the current council members of the Centre ADNDRC. You've been one of the pioneers of domain name dispute resolution in Asia, but you're also very actively involved in other areas of dispute resolution, including mediation and arbitration. And we know that you sit regularly as mediator, arbitrator, and of course, as a domain name panelist. So you have a lot to bring to this conversation, and we're really excited that you accepted to join us today. And we'll talk about your rich experience, particularly with a focus on domain name dispute resolution, given that you've contributed significantly to the development of this in Hong Kong and across Asia. So with that, we will begin. Christopher, thank you again. So you hold qualifications in computing, engineering, and law. That's a really interesting mix. You're one of Hong Kong's pioneers when it comes to dispute resolution, and you've been involved with many different aspects, as I've mentioned, mediation, arbitration, as well as domain name dispute resolution. Focusing in on domain name dispute resolution, where did your interest in this field in particular begin?
Kieran, thank you very much for having me. It came to me when I was looking at a web page relating to selling domain names. And one domain name came to me called cd.com. At the time, in those days, we didn't have, for example, now we have the USBs and all that stuff, but in those days we had CDs. So there was a sale of a cd.com of 2.5 million US dollars. And it got to my attention. And I looked at that web page, and I looked at, for example, the background, why it came about 2.5 million. There was discussions, there were disputes about it, and they tried to resolve it. They didn't resolve it. Eventually, the person decided to pay 2.5 million. So then I said, is there a dispute resolution process that you can actually adopt to resolve these kind of disputes? So I looked on the web page, and the organization that came about was WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization. They did domain name disputes. And I looked at, are they the ones who basically handle all domain name disputes in the world? And I looked into it further, and it came to an organization called ICANN, Internet Corporation for Sign Names and Numbers. And I finally got involved with them. And since then, I've been actively involved with them to this day.
So that's several decades now, I believe. Yeah.
That's correct, since 1998 to now.
Yeah. And do you think, having had that idea and taken the initiative back then, having seen the industry develop, and also given that you know so much about other areas of dispute resolution, do you think that domain name dispute resolution has an important place still today as an option for trademark owners and for brand protection? And also, can you just tell us a little bit more, generally speaking, about some of the features of domain name dispute resolution?
Okay, I think if I can bring in another gentleman called Ed Rubin. Ed Rubin was basically a council member of HKIC at the time. When I tried to float this idea to the council of HKIC at the time, they said, maybe this is not something that we're interested in. Domain names, internet, a new area, we're not sure about. We tend to be very conservative, focus on arbitration and mediation. But Ed Rubin at the time was very innovative, and he said, okay, let's give it a try. So he was the one who basically moved this along with myself and a few other council members, I must say. We decided, okay, we should be looking at the future. That's where we came about this domain name. Sort of dispute resolution. Now, the key features of it is because when you go to arbitration, most people know that it takes not just a day or 2 days or even a month to resolve your dispute. It takes roughly 6 months to 1 year, or sometimes even 2 years, and sometimes some cases last for 3 years, depending on the complexity of the case. With domain names, basically you can actually resolve the dispute very effectively for a very short period of time, usually 1 month. And basically, in terms of the cost to handle the domain name is very low. So from a trademark owner, given that, for example, you're managing a lot of brands around the world, if suddenly someone cyber squats your domain name, the chances are if you have to go through the arbitration process, It's going to take you a long time. And also you're going to spend a lot of money. And hopefully, basically, you might be bankrupt at the same time. So the chances are that's not what trademark holders want to really do. So they want to resolve it very quickly, efficiently, at reduced cost. And that's where the domain name system comes into play.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's certainly been my experience of it over the last year. I think the cost and the time differential is fundamental, and actually in the majority of cases that we handle, the domain name is in fact transferred. So it's a highly efficient and effective process that's quick and it saves time and money. So given the proliferation of the internet and the number of domain names, it was certainly a good decision that you made together with Ed Rubin back then. Just coming back to the founding of ADNDRC, I mean, you were there at the outset and you were lobbying for this. You've touched on this a little bit, but what were the key motivations to get HKIAC involved at that stage? And I know together with members of CTAC, there was some conversation, but what were the kind of main motivations for establishing the organization? And if you can share any of the history that might be helpful for listeners, that would be great.
I think at the time, basically, WIPO had exclusivity in terms of handling domain name disputes, including in another organization called National Arbitration Forum, and also e-resolutions in Canada. There's 3 of them in total. But there were none of them were based in Asia. And given that there were language issues coming up relating to Chinese, Chinese being the second largest language basically around the world after English, so chances are then Spanish, then all these Arabic languages and all that, we thought about, should we have basically a sort of a group of individuals or entities in Asia who will actually group together and form what we call the Asian Domain Name Dispute Resolution Center, who will handle not just English type domain names, but other language type domain names that basically are more akin to this part of the region. It took us some time, Kieran. Basically, we had to go through the US Department of Commerce to get vetted, and we had to go through sort of various different channels, including ICANN themselves, including different internet bodies in the United States. It took us roughly about 2 years before they actually were convinced that basically we are a legitimate organization, that we mean business, and we are keen on actually establishing this entity. It took us 2 years, from 1998 to roughly 2000, before we established the Asian Domain Name Dispute Resolution Center. In between, the number of emails, the number of video conferences, the number of in-person meetings that I've attended to was quite a lot. And basically, we had to sell and pitch it to them. Basically, we mean business. We're not one of those entities that basically comes and goes. We're here for long-term stability of the internet. We're here to actually work with China, work with people in Asia to actually make sure, for example, we have a credible dispute resolution body that basically handles domain name disputes around the region of Asia.
Yeah, well, you certainly proven that there was a need, especially when it comes to language. About 50% of the cases that we handle are Chinese language cases. So it's really important that we have that presence in Asia and that we have people like yourself and others that can handle domain name disputes bilingually or in Chinese only, as well as in English only. So it's certainly proven to be true. And 20 years later, I guess the field has certainly developed, and we have more domain name dispute resolution service providers around than perhaps there were when ADNDRC was established. Having seen the trajectory, what do you think are ADNDRC's strengths today? You touched there a little bit on the fact that we know Asia. Is that one of the key advantages today when it comes to ADNDRC, do you think?
I think taking yourself, Kieran, you're the Secretary General of the ADNDRC now. We tend to be actually more focused on the users. We're looking at diversity. We're looking at, for example, areas like, for example, different backgrounds of people on our board. We bring in people from different sort of knowledge base into various committees within ADNDRC. We're looking at, for example, what is the projection of Asia in terms of domain names. We're looking at quality. We're looking at, for example, how our panelists get retrained. and so forth. These are the areas we're looking at very seriously, because there's lots of people, as you know, Kieran, apply to become on the panelist. And suddenly some of them will say to you, oh, I haven't had my first case. But the key thing is, end of the day, it's not just about the center appointing panelists. You have to be well known within the community as well. People have to get to know you. Brand owners have to know that you exist. It's something that you have to do as well. So it's not just about the center giving you appointments, but it's also about yourself, promoting yourself, about, for example, that you are handling domain name disputes. So we're working hand in hand with the center and with the panelists together to actually create a better environment for people to handle disputes. So I think that's very important.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I think our engagement with the users and the panelists, and as you say, to develop training to make sure that knowledge is there is really important, and something that we're focusing on increasingly. We've heard certainly about your journey, and there you gave some suggestions for panelists in order to become better known amongst the community and potential users. Just to finish up for us, you have led a really exceptional and diverse career when it comes to dispute resolution. So with respect to DNDR, or also more broadly, do you have any top tips for those budding domain name or dispute resolution students or young practitioners out there who want to have such a successful and diverse career?
I think I don't say I've got a diverse and successful career. I was just lucky at the time, Kieran. The reason being is because in those days, dispute resolution wasn't really popular. And I remember a solicitor saying to me, Christopher, you're wasting your time. It's too much effort in dispute resolution. You might as well focus on conveyancing. It's easy money, easy to handle. You don't have any hassles. And I decided, no, I really like dispute resolution. I like arbitration, I like mediation, and also I like domain name disputes. And for those young up and coming practitioners, I would say the key thing is always learning. Continuous professional development is the key. Why? Because the world is changing. 20 years ago, we never heard of this term called Zoom or all these web conferencing facilities and all that. Now we have to deal with, for example, how do we actually handle disputes cross-border online and so forth. So I believe that continuing professional development is important. Key thing is develop your network. That's very important because the community is very small. Everyone knows each other. So try to develop the community, get to know everyone, learn from the best, try to be interns, try to be sort of speak at conferences, try to get involved with organizing conferences, events, and so forth, and try to give back to the community. That's very important. Pro bono work is very important. And I think that if you do more pro bono work, people recognize that it's not just me all the time in terms of trying to get what I want. It's also actually sharing your knowledge and working with other people. So what will happen is others will recognize you as a person who's actually a giver and a taker, and they'll like to work with you. So I think that's very important. But the key thing is very important is try to develop your successful career, but at the same time, always treasure your family. That's very important because you have to have a work-life balance in life.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that last point is probably not discussed enough. So thank you for raising it. My observation, if I can, having known you for a number of years now, and also certainly hearing about the journey of ADNDRCs, also being someone who can find opportunities and think outside of the box. And certainly for me, you're one of those people with the initiatives that you've come up with, and certainly with being one of the founding members of ADNDRC such a long time ago. So I would certainly add that to the list from the experience that I've had of you. But we will stop here. There's a lot of things that we can discuss, but the idea here is that our users get a taste of our leadership and also get a better understanding of ADNDRC and the people involved with it. So Christopher, thank you enormously. It's been a pleasure working with you on ADNDRC and a pleasure speaking with you today. So thanks again for your time.
Thank you, Kieran. The pleasure's mine as well. Thank you very much.